there's a place, a school, an institution where a professor resides. Listen to words of Professor Buitron.
Hello, I'm Professor Buitrón, and I'm going to ask you a question in today's Questions and Viewpoints. What I'm going to tell you is the truth and the origins of two words that were used prior to 1978, and the words that it was out of the question that I was asked. And that question was, what is the difference between a Savateur and a Savatier? Something to think about. You need to understand that Savate, the French martial arts, there were many. Around the world, it's known as Savate, Savate boxing, Savate kickboxing, French Savate kickboxing. There's different elements, but within France itself, the French martial arts encompassed several different disciplines. Prior to 1978, you had two pugilistic arts that grew, that trained, that fought against each other, alongside each other for about 120 years. And that was Savate and Boxe Francaise. I want you all to stop and pay attention, because there's a lot of garbages out there in the internet and in social media. There's a lot of stuff floating around that doesn't make sense, that people take as if it was truth. They take it as if it was gospel, and it's not. What I am going to tell you, not only did I live it, I saw it, I listened, and I asked questions when I was younger and growing up around all these legends that I was around. I had a lot of conversations with Count Pierre Baruzzi. I had a lot of conversations with Professor Sylvain Silvani. A lot of conversations with Matt Roger Lafont. Of course, my professor, Robert Paturel. So I was in a time frame in the 90s, in the early part of the 90s, where the distinct from Savate in origin, Boxe Francaise in origin. You can still see them. You can still see their differences, what make their fighters different, their signature kicks, their many call regional kicks, which we'll talk about that in other points and tactics that I'll be bringing out next couple of shows. One of the last conversations I had with one of the luminaries of Boxe Francaise, Senator Plaze, about 7 years ago. And in 2012, we had a long conversation about what had happened and how the politics had emerged and everything that was going on, and how the government was actually trying to control what you could teach and what you couldn't teach. And he then said, you know, what makes a Savateur, what makes is how he uses it in a daily basis. And that's something we'll get onto, those philosophies. One of the things that I hear all the time, especially in the internet, and folks, they always say, if you do Savate, that's for the street. You do Boxe Francaise, that's for the ring. No. Boxe Francaise had a ring, street art. Savate had a ring, street art. Had set kicks, set fighting patterns, same blocks, same strikes with the hand, things that were a little bit different. If you practice Boxe Francaise, you were known as a Savateur. If you did Savate, you were known as a Savatier. one of the questions is, why were they separate? Well, very simple. A student of Michel Cassou, by the name of Charles Lecour, was one that invented Boxe Francaise. Actually, the true name is Adresse Parisienne. Okay, that's a true name. And it became a military art and so on and so forth. It goes down to the 18th century. But there was a split. There was kind of a rivalry. And this was told to me by Maître Roger Lafont, the rivalry, where it started. And I think the origins are there. And it started when you had two greats of Boxe Francaise, Maître Charles Charlemont and Maître Michel Castier. When Charlemont and Castier fought in 1901, it was to see who was the champion of Boxe Francaise in France, in the world actually. Okay, yeah, boxed them, better technique, better speed, better everything. That Charlemont could not lose face, so he kicked them in the testicles. There was a Savatier that was kind of a ruffian, that was actually the founder of the oldest Savate school that is right now, which is a Suren. Hakwin, when he saw action, and he kept growing up, and he says, "I challenge you to a fight." There were other Francaise back in the 1900s. My professor's father won a world championship, Louis Jean Lafont, the Francaise practitioner. But nonetheless, the time went on. In 1978, the two federations merged. The National Federation of Savate and the French Federation of Boxe emerged. And a new fighting discipline hit, and the seed was planted. And that new fighting discipline is known as Boxe Francaise Savate. So what you all see now is Boxe Francaise Savate. The old Savate clubs, the old Boxe Francaise clubs have dwindled away, and Boxe Francaise Savate has absorbed them. The last professor of Savate that was in the Federation in 2012, when I did the documentary, and he's in my book, is Bertrand Leprovost. And he was a head and the founder of Club Belbony, an excellent club. That's a Savate club, or it was. Now it's a Boxe Francaise. Then you have a great Boxe Francaise club that at that time frame was from Clichy, which is probably one of the greatest fighting clubs in the world, especially under Professor Sot-Massage, great man, great family, Frank and his brother Anthony. Camille Shoreff came out of that club. Pascal Mazoui. Those are people that you see and you embrace because you were in the ring with some of them, and you were not only in the ring training with them, you sweat with them, you sparred with them. You were their partners. You were back and forth. That you developed this friendship and this respect amongst each other. But in 1978, the professor of Club Clichy, his name was Patrick Augais, and Augais' uniform's in the back. You can see it's a blue uniform next to Pascal Mazoui, who has a blue glove, and next to him, and is Sylvain Postal and André Germain. The top, I'm looking at Lulu Mercadier, of course, Camille Shoreff, my trainer, Richard Sila, my brother, Bob Alex. The jacket is Sud Massage, black uniform on the top. There's many that we have in a different story. We'll talk about the different fighters. But 1978, the great fight between Savate in Boxe Francaise, as told to me by Richard Sela, who was present and witnessed the action. Patrick Ogay was from Boxe Francaise, and he was going to fight Emmanuel Asesina. Great fighter, great friend. Haven't talked to Emmanuel in a very long time. He was from Cameroon. And they were going to fight against each other. Okay, and they were in the ring. And Sela tells me that the judge, the delegate oficial, official delegate, was already signing the world championship. They were all Boxe Francaise judges. And he started to sign Patrick, and he had just started with the A for our guy. And then he sees up, and Emmanuel Asesima gives 2 punches to Patrick and falls down, knocks him out. So they just scratched out the name, and they wrote next to the name that they were already going to give it to somebody else. And they said, Emmanuel Asesima. And Richard Sela's own words said that's when the war started between the Savate and Boxe Francaise club, especially here in Paris. And you had that attitude, you had that feeling when you used to go into some of the clubs or Boxe Francaise, they'll try to test you, and you had to do what you had to do, you know? And we'll talk later about the differences in kicking, the differences in positionings, and we'll do that because we have a whole slew of questions that come in. And folks, this material is material that I witnessed personally, that I grew up with, not somebody that was told by somebody that looked it up on the internet. None of that garbage. This is firsthand material that we're doing. And if you want to learn more about the professors, I just finished a book this past year. We still have a couple of them. And I'll put the ad here. And if you want an autographed copy, send me your name and number to BuitronAcademy2012@gmail.com. Until next time, peace. Merry Christmas.
Come train at the best-kept secret of Laredo, Buitron Academy, 956-401-4868, Savate.biz.